We have had a very, very, very interesting morning, as Lee pointed out in his post. Check out this is what's been going on since the last hour and a half or so. Big swings, a little more energy on the downside than the upside. Excuse me. But it's really important to note where we are. ES is up 43 points and we are above 5,800, 5,822. Boy, that sure flew right through that one, didn't it? Next couple of days are going to be very, very interesting, guys. Today, and certainly tomorrow, the reaction to GDP in a half an hour, 28 minutes. This is going to be very interesting. I encourage you not to have too strong an opinion because the movement could get pretty crazy. Obviously, there's a bit under us right now, but check out the TPO view. Lee will be talking about this morning in the opening session. Look at this. We have a poor week high, and this is the overnight. Count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 single prints underneath us this morning at all-time highs with a poor week high. So very interesting. Yeah, 18. Boy, it's run over 18 a couple of times on the way up in the last few days, but it's definitely worth watching. So that's the story there. Again, there's a rotation out of tech, but it's not stopping tech from rallying when it feels like it. Here is the TPO for NQ. And guess what? Same thing. We've got a bunch of single prints on the way up. So basically, we flew through that middle area and a bunch of old single prints to the all-time high right there. This is a very interesting situation. The only thing it's funny, every time I look at this, I look at it and the first thing that hits my head is, wow, there's a lot of opportunity here both ways. This could be really interesting. That's my first reaction. My second reaction is this is the kind of stuff that could really fuck you, to put it simply. High volume at the high. This is a classic market profile short distribution. That's why we have zero and single prints on the way up. This is the Globex session. Zero prints are roughly in the same spots the single prints are on the TPO, and except there's more single prints, and there's a price rejector at the bottom. So again, the potential here to go either way really hard is there. There's no question about that. What's the other thing? Well, again, this is going to make it really mucky. The volume is low, but it's better than it was yesterday. We're an hour and a half out, and we're at 152,000, 151,000 contracts on ES. Not bad, but there's going to be a lot of volume at the bottom of the hour, so that'll probably get us at least till 300,000, maybe 250, another 100. So that'll get us to a reasonably normal open for this time of the year. So it's kind of a very interesting situation. I've said that like 5 times now because there's no other good word for it. It's not bullish. It's not bearish. It's ish. It's both. And again, one of the things that this was probably one of the things that was among the harder things to learn as a trader over time is no matter how good the setup is, it always has potential to screw you. And when there's this clearly both ways, you really have to just focus on risk management. There's plenty of opportunities. I mentioned this in pretty much every session of this class so far, but it's really worth remembering. Every inflection point is a trade. There's a trade there. Usually you could play it both ways depending on your proclivities, but there's usually an easier way. And right now, the easiest way, this is what's going to make this open so hard. The easiest way, this news and the open, the easiest way to play this right now is down. Does anybody not see why I'm saying that? Look at the relative aggression. It dribbles up and it gets slammed down, and then it gets slammed down, and then it gets slammed down, and then it gets slammed down. This to me looks like try to find places to get short. But if you were short right after any of the slams down, you would have got caught bouncing. So again, risk management is paramount, but there's massive opportunity here. And so this is what I'm talking about. As a trader, this is the thing, even 50 years in, that's you struggle with, because opportunity gets you excited and you want to play, and then you look at it and you say, it's real easy to make a simple mistake that can cost you more money than you want it to. So balance your enthusiasm and then go to the next step. This is always a good question, particularly this time of the morning when I'm waking up and drinking coffee. This is the kind of, after I go through my competency check, and today I'm actually competent. I got a decent amount of sleep. Yesterday I did way too much coding and playing stuff, and I got brain twisted. By the end of the day, I was useless. If you were at the closing session, you heard part of my uselessness. So good sleep, and I'm back in the saddle today. And I'm really looking, most of the opportunity this week is going to be today and tomorrow. We had some weird stuff earlier in the week. There was some decent trades out there, but the opportunity is building up. And again, this is what I was talking about. Look at the energy to the downside. This is a short, but you got to get an entry at the right spot. The aggression is clearly to the downside. So let's see what we can do with it. Remember, numbers are coming right at the bottom of the hour. And that's the GDP number, which, because of the interest rate environment, this is a very important number right now. What's the Fed going to do next is kind of going to come from this and a few other numbers. So keep an eye on that. We also have a little bit later, I'm scrolling through the calendar here. Look at this. Look at the top of the hour. Talking heads. Okay, we've got Collins, we've got Kugler, we've got Powell, we've got Williams, we've got Lagarde over in Europe. I don't know if that's Butch or Bush, how he pronounces that, also in Europe. And then at the top of the hour, we get pending home sales, and then more talking heads. There's Barr, and we get the Kansas City numbers. This is talking, and then another one, Kashkari at 10 o'clock. So this is really dangerous stuff with this kind of downside energy and the volume and all this talking. We could see a lot of crazy movement. So it's a good session for doing what we're doing today. I'm really glad we got this on the calendar for today, for the seeing what the wave volume looks like around these economic announcements. Because remember, you got to go back to the basics of the way we look at each opportunity to trade. You got to start there. That's your first spot. So I already did my competency check, and my brain's doing pretty good, and I'm reasonably rested. So the next things I want to worry about are these. Time of day. This time of day is critical. Understand, we are past the midnight oil and all the European stuff. That was earlier. We had a lot of good action around that. Any earnings stuff would have also been passed. So now the only thing we're waiting on is this number. And then we go into the pre-open, which is always volatile. So you couldn't, if you stay focused on that before you do anything, that time of day, that will always keep you risk averse at the right times. As I said, direction right now is down energy is stronger than up energy, but we're at all-time highs and we're 20 points above big fat whole number. Not seeing a lot of sweeps. It's too early. Generally, sweeps come later, and the other things don't matter yet because we haven't traded enough. So let's have a look here. Where would some obvious inflection points be? This is the next question I ask myself if I'm looking at particularly an economic reaction, because the liquidity is so thin this time of day. I mean, look at ES. Between the inside bid and ask now, and if you go up, there isn't 3 digits until 25.75. That's 5 points from here. So somebody throws 100 lot on, they could easily sweep six levels in the book. And, and 100 lot's not a big trade. So that's really, really important to be mindful of that. So if you look at that, and then where's liquidity? There's a big chunk of it up there at 30, huge chunk. That's probably some MBO stuff. There's some below us, but it's spread out. So where would you play this from an inflection point of view? This is my fast 30-second LRC chart. And you can see there's a really clear spot up here at the highs that got sold aggressively, and that's around 28. So if you let that overshoot, that would get us to that liquidity at 30. So a trade up there gets interesting for a potential short, but it would have to at least get to that high and get sold pretty hard. Otherwise, the potential to go through there with a squeeze is pretty high. So I like that spot. That's an interesting spot. Now let's look the other way, which is much, much more interesting. Single prints all the way down. So if you look at this scenario here, let's just push that out a little bit. Okay, right there is good. Okay, if you look at this right here, and look where we are, we're trading right up under that big bulge of volume. This is it right here. So this tells me if it gets up here, it could go as far as it wants, but boy, that gets interesting to come back and get those single prints at some point. Maybe not even today. On the other hand, if you look at this and if it gets any downside momentum, you would expect it to at least play down to the volume there, which starts at 5,800. So below 5,800 starts getting interesting for a place to play the other direction, assuming the downside volume finds buyers. So let's have a look at what that looks like. If we go here. So where is that? Where's the big fat whole number in terms of the waves of price action? Oh, look at that. Isn't that interesting? We got up, here's balance down here. This burst, this is a midnight oil trade right here. This was happening right around midnight my time. That's classic. It's actually right before it. And remember, we're meeting tonight at 11:30 my time, Thursday 11:30. That's our midnight oil trade. We're going to go for a couple hours max around the transition into Friday, which if it's like last night, we should see some energy like this. Try not to be late for that, because sometimes that I was going to do it a little bit earlier, like at 11, but then we could end up sitting around for a while. So we're starting at 11:30. Please be on time. That's my time, Thursday tonight. I'll put a link in there as soon as I finish the trading the open session this morning, but it is posted. The time is posted now in our stream at the bottom here. So this is the one we're on right now. And then tonight, tomorrow morning, actually 11:30 Thursday, tonight, that's when we're going to start that. So there will be a link posted a little later. Okay, so we now have about 15 minutes. I have a pretty good, comfortable understanding of what I'm looking at contextually. I have a decent understanding of where I might want to trade this. Single prints below us, air above us. If it pushes up and finds sellers, particularly above the high, between the high at 28 and about 32.5, that's really interesting. Look at the liquidity parked there, there. Core week high, perfect spot to run stops up there and for us to get short. So that's what I'm going to try to do, unless it's just overwhelmingly strong. If it is, 6,000 is not out of the question. It's pretty close. We can move a lot fast when we get into an air pocket at the top of a range, because there's just nothing there. There's nothing to slow the price down until it finds some sort of sellers. And you got to assume that if it breaks out to the upside, it's going to be a short squeeze before it's going to find sellers. You have to think that way. Number one, that's risk management thinking. And number two, it's overwhelmingly likely. So, something likely to be difficult with risk management, you have to put that front and center in your head. So that's where it is now. All right. I think I covered everything I wanted to. We still have about 14 minutes. I'm going to take a quick break. I had another bat in the house this morning. This is funny. This is the second bat I've had in my house in 2 days. And I know they're different because the one that was last night was smaller, about the size of oh, it was like the size of a really big moth, like maybe an inch and a half, 2 inches wingspan. And then this morning I had one that was like 4 inches, 5 inches, big one. And I sleep with my window open in my bedroom. There's a screen on it, and it's also my second office. And for some reason, they come in here in the morning, and I think they're coming down the chimney. I'm not sure how they're getting in, but I have to kind of herd them to a sliding glass door to get them to fly out. It's pretty funny. And I'm not sure if I got this one. I think I let him out, but I haven't seen him in about 15 minutes, so hoping he went out. It's funny when you first see it, it just looks like a big moth. And then you realize that's bigger than a moth. It looks like a mouse with wings. Oh yeah, they're very good. Yeah. Now but there's not enough bugs in the house for them to survive. That's why they got to get back outside so they can eat. Because at night they fly and eat. They fly into swarms of bugs. And yeah, I mean, they're mammals. They're great creatures. I think they're very cool. Just it's startling when you wake up and there's this giant moth-looking thing flying around, and they fly kind of erratically, because they're using radar. Um, but it's amazing that down here there's a lot of things that would interfere with radar in my downstairs here. And when I got the sliding glass door open, he found it pretty quickly. That was kind of cool. I could see how people could be afraid, the bat flying around in your bedroom, but I thought it was pretty cool. All right, we're pushing up again. Yeah, this is just begging to be a short squeeze. Look at the volume now. Remember what I said a minute ago? The volume was on the downside. It turned. We've got some good buy side volume here, but we haven't penetrated where it sold off. It sold off twice from the level we're on right now, and then a whole bunch of times from the level above it. So I'm just kind of watching that. I have no gaming beyond that because it's just that we're way too thin. We could easily break to the upside. We could easily find sellers to the downside. So you just stay nimble and you play whatever happens. It's that simple. All righty. Anything else worth looking at here? I don't think so. It's interesting. One of the things that you find on these economic release setups is they frequently look like this, where, there's really clear opportunity in both ways. And so once you kind of have a sense of what the scenario is, what the context is, excuse me, it pays not to overthink it. This is a really clear one, but it's going to do whatever it's going to do. I can't influence that. I have to just react to it. So again, program that into your head over and over and over again. I can see all the things that can happen. So focus on how you would react to them. Big, strong move up. What am I going to do? I'm going to look for sellers. If I see them, I'm going to nibble short. That's simple. If I don't see sellers, if the volume's overwhelming, I'm not going to join that long because it's just too hard to manage a long and break out into uncharted territory. I would wait till the open of RTH to try to play that. And Lee will be around for that, so that should be an interesting session. All right. You know what? I am going to take a break now for just a few minutes. I'll be back well before the number comes out, which is in 10 minutes, 9 minutes. I'm just going to go walk my stairs and get some more coffee and get moving more. So I'll be right back. All right. I'm churning at the top of the range on high volume. Hmm. Very interesting. In my younger and less mature trading days, I would already be short into this setup. On the other hand, I've learned trading economic announcements enough times that the potential for overshoots is just too strong. So if you're going to try that, you got to be up here somewhere, 30, 32 and a half, maybe. But even that's risky. It's just too much volume up here. So we'll wait and see what the reaction is, and then we'll be nimble and play it. Got about 7 minutes. Hmm. I'll talk more about this at the open, but I wanted to call your attention again to what's been going on with the internals. Anytime there's strength in the afternoon, it diminishes like it did Tuesday and Wednesday. Right there, you can see in both the NASDAQ and the broader market that's going on. So again, it's not like this market's behaving like a market at all-time highs. It's behaving like a market that's pulling back, which makes it very tricky to play. If it in fact is pulling back, then it's not short time yet. On the other hand, it's an interesting enough spot because of how much noise it created in the middle. If this was a clean move up with no single prints, I'd be much more interested in trying to join this. But at the moment, I think that could be very dangerous, probably more dangerous than going short. Because to the upside, it's an air pocket, but it'll someplace find buyers or sellers rather. But to the downside, it's really unclear where it would find buyers. It could be all the way at the bottom of the range. It could be before those single prints. So we just got to kind of watch and see where they pop up. That's really all we can do. I think it's also noteworthy that the market, at least from cumulative delta point of view, is net short right now from the overnight. See that's negative 12,000. So again, that doesn't always mean anything, but it's interesting enough right now. That metric is more useful at the close, because people are going to have to cover that. They have all day now to play with those if they are in fact net short. You can't tell for sure looking at cumulative delta, but you can get an idea. We don't know how much of that's hedging or other time frames, but at least some percentage of it is likely to be net short. I'll be right back, guys. All right, I'm back and we are sitting right on the high here. This is such a dangerous setup. It's just begging to just ream shorts up here, and then it could be a good short setup. But right now, got to just stay out of the way. You could try being long here, but again, the potential for a pullback. Gosh, in ES, it could pull back 7 points easily just to the bottom of the high volume here. It actually 10 points even wouldn't even ding this. So we gotta just stay on the sidelines and watch here. It's too risky to try to play either way. I find it hard to see how it wouldn't at least try to break this ledge to the upside. But there's no UB up there. It's a poor weak high is all. And if we can get some excess into this liquidity here, look at the liquidity at 31, 32.5, 33 quarter, 34, 34.75. It's people are looking to fade it up there is what they're doing right now. You guys want to try that? We could throw some up there, but I wouldn't do it before. The first place I'd probably try it is right there. Let's see, 28, 32, 4 more points. Yeah, I'd probably try those two spots if I was going to try a limit order. And in NQ, it's trading above zero. It's right on zero right now. Yeah, at least 20s in play there, probably more. Because if you look at the liquidity, it's clustered around 12 and 15 as usual, and then around 20. And above there, who knows? But all right, here we go. See what happens. We have 1 minute. Oh, look at the liquidity moving up now. See, they just moved up there. Well, let's stay underneath them. Basically, people moving out of the way is what's happening here. It's really thin between here and this liquidity. So big chunk now up at 39. Let's get under that with this other order. I don't recommend doing this, putting limit orders like that. But every now and then you get filled really opportunely. The better approach is to let it move up and then decide where to play. But that's going to happen really fast. So this way, maybe we can do both. All right, here we go. Getting volatile, getting thin. Look at this. There's levels of liquidity that have single digits. See, that's just asking to push through that. So let's see. Maybe we'll get a fill up here. I'm number one in line at 32 and a quarter for a 5 micros. Here we go. 30 seconds. This is fun even if you don't trade it, just play in stem or just watch. Whoa, big energy down. See, we keep seeing that. The volume is on the downside. That's why I want to be playing short. But I got to get a good entry or I won't be able to manage the risk. It's one thing I like about having equivolume bars like the ones you're seeing in Jigsaw there. They're just so much easier to see than just candlesticks that don't get wider for volume like that. I wish Sierra Chart's equivolume bars worked better. They just don't work as relatively clear. They don't get wide enough fast enough, and there's really no way that you can change the threshold, but you can't change the rate that they get fatter at, and it's too bad because that's one of the major flaws of Sierra for me is that it doesn't have good equivolume bars. I try, as I was trying to explain yesterday, I try really hard to build tools that are visual, and this is really visual. We can see the aggression is clearly bigger to the downside, but that doesn't mean we won't run stops. Yeah, it's adaptive also, Chris. It's taking into account the volume as it's plotting. So it's looking, it's got a little bit of intelligence. It looks backwards and it determines relative volume. And yeah, that's a smarter way to do it. Exactly how he's coding it, I don't know. But the ones in Ninja work pretty much the same way. Equivolume bars in Ninja are really good. Um, but I'm trying not to use Ninja anymore if I can. Just trying to stabilize on Sierra and Jigsaw with a tiny bit of toss left in it. All right, here we go. We're past the numbers. They're out. No other reaction. So, but we're still up here. We have not sold off dramatically, even though the volume was pretty aggressive. So this is interesting. Maybe we can run stops right now. Let's see if they'll get up there. It looks pretty orderly though. This actually looks really orderly around this high volume at 25. So I'm canceling those orders. No big snappy reaction. Let's give it a few more minutes and see if it does anything more. Otherwise, we'll wrap up and we'll reconvene at the TRG open session, which is at 6:15 and my time. And yeah, very anticlimactic. I agree. Oh, we're pushing up again. God, you could almost get short into this, like at 27.5. There's an argument for that, but you're at the mercy of stops here. Let's see if we can get a position on just for fun. I'd take 27, but that's as low as I'll go. See if we can get a fill at 27. I'm pretty far back in line here. Okay, there we go. Tick up, tick up, tick up. Trading there, didn't fill. 10 traded, I didn't fill. I'm 22 in line now out of 40. Try again. If I can get a fill here, I'll take it. And I'd rather get a fill up there, but I'll take one where I'm at. Because it was anticlimactic, that's one of the reasons I'm trying to fade this here. Because the potential just back into the 22 area is really good. But if you don't get a good fill, yeah, see, now there's the trade happening and I couldn't get a fill. Didn't want to be more aggressive and take the market there because that would have had me 3 ticks off sides if it pushed up. So, but I was clearly on a good spot. See, this is exactly where it got sold. So I just didn't quite do that quickly enough. Oh well, we'll leave it there for a minute, see what happens. But you can see we're pushing down. The volume on the bid side is heavier. And so far, buyers haven't stepped up. Well, maybe they're doing it right now. Let's see. Watch the right on 25. So that's the next quarter number down. Let's see if that gets bought. It did. Okay. We might be able to get short at 27 now. Let's see. Good absorption here. So I'm in a good spot, but it could easily run stops above me. So let's see if we can get a fill. Oh, come on. One more tick. God, there we go. We filled. Okay. Now we've got an opportunity for a nice little 4 ticker, maybe more. They're going to try to run stops right now. Here it comes. Now that the number's out, remember all the talking heads coming up, be a good spot to try to run stops. Let's see what happens. Okay, I got 2 more. So now I have a mini and a little bit better position to try to scalp this for some ticks. So let's see what we can do with it. Okay, that one filled. We got the first one off. Let's protect it and see if we can get a little runner off of here. We're 27.25. It's a 26.25. I'm protecting half of that to 26.75. And let's scoot that down. Okay, now we've got a point locked in. Perfect. Let's see if we can get 2 points. Next is to 25.25. So that would be right there would be 2 points. Nope, we got 1.5. Cool. So you can always do that kind of stuff when it gets quiet like this in the pre-open. But in general, I don't like to trade after the economic announcements at the pre-open because it starts getting crazy. There's going to be some attempt to try to push the stops up here. I would trade short into that, but that's me. Again, if we get above this area that I'm in looking for shorts, say, the high to 32.5, then anything could happen. But so far we are finding sellers up here. And so that remains a decent idea, but it's not a great one. Again, you just saw managed to pull 4 ticks out of a mini, $50, commissions on 10 micros, $10, so there's a $40 trade. But is it worth the risk? Yeah, as long as it stays quiet, yes. If it gets much more volatile here, I would say no. I would sit it out. All right, so we're past the number. Not much happening. I'm debating whether we should see if we can get another trade or not here, or just sit out till we get to the open. I'm thinking sitting out till the open makes more sense looking at this volume. Here's what the 30-minute looks like. And we'll spread it out for this scale. So, you can see we're consolidating up here on a lot of volume, and that poor weak high is really obvious. The bottom is much more interestingly formed, but, anything can happen here. So be interested to see what Lee has to say. As I mentioned, he'll be at our opening session, and his read on these things is always interesting. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. That was a nice little spot to play, but I'm going to rest my brain, and we'll go for the open. All right. Any questions or comments? Thanks for coming. It was fun doing a little news related wave volume. And again, I find this is the way to just understand what's happening. Pop up, your wave volume and say, well, which side's more aggressive? Clearly the sellers are more aggressive here, but we're at the all-time highs. So, if you don't get a good entry, which, I just had a couple of good entries, you can trade it. But if you get on the wrong side of this, it could get ugly. So respect the volume. The volume is running the show. And we did pick up a little bit on the overall volume. We're at 174 now, but that's still pretty low for this time of day, this time of year. So that makes me cautious too. All right, guys, we will wrap here. I will see you at 6:15 my time, which is in a little bit more than a half an hour for the open. And Lee will be there, so join us. And we'll go from there. And then one more reminder, again, tonight, my time, 11:30. So that's Friday, 2:30 on Eastern time. That's when we're going to start the midnight oil, and we might be a little late for the first move at that point. So, watch it yourself if you're around. I'll open the room as soon as I can, and that'll be fun. We'll trade for an hour or two and see what we get. It should be an energetic overnight if we're going to get one. And then we'll see how the open goes tomorrow. All right, I will see you guys later. Yeah, it's fun to stay awake. The way I handle that, Chris, is I'll take a nap like today at the in the afternoon, and then that way it's easier to get up, and then I'll just stay awake tomorrow morning, and then take a nap in the late morning tomorrow, and that kind of works. But yeah, it's important to keep your biology current with the time of day you're trading, and that can be challenging, but it's if you're going to do overnights and early mornings, you really got to make sure your competency is there. So, all right, I will see you guys in a little bit for the open, 6:15. Have a good one.